Yesterday, the Morrison government announced a significant economic support package for the more than 5 million people in New South Wales who are now subject to a lockdown. This package has a number of important elements. First, it provides household assistance, income support for families and for workers who have lost hours of work due to these lockdowns. We have elevated that payment to $600 if you've lost more than 20 hours a week, or $375 a week if you've lost less than 20 hours a week. This is the rate of payment that JobKeeper was at in the December quarter of last year. On top of that income support, we have also put in place a cash flow boost to support businesses, because businesses not just have wages to pay, but they've also got fixed expenses like their rent or their utilities, water, electricity, which are costs that are still incurred even when customers are not coming through the door. So based around a similar program that we announced during the height of the pandemic, we will pay between $1,500 and $10,000 a week to businesses that have seen their turnover reduced by 30% or more. And we have entered into a 50-50 funding share agreement with the New South Wales government to deliver that program. 500,000 businesses in New South Wales employing more than 3 million people will be eligible for that payment, and registrations are open today. Importantly, these initiatives build on the more than $300 billion in direct economic and health support that the Morrison government has committed to the people of Australia from the start of this pandemic. This provides us now with a template to provide further support to other states should they incur a lengthy lockdown that we're now seeing in New South Wales. Now, I noted the comments yesterday from the Victorian Premier critical of these payments to New South Wales. This is deeply disappointing that the Premier is deciding to play petty politics at a time when the country faces real challenges in the midst of COVID-19. The facts are these. The coalition government provided $750 million a week to the people of Victoria when they were in the middle of a lockdown last year. A lengthy lockdown it was. People of Victoria, and I'm a proud Victorian, have received more on a per capita basis under JobKeeper than any other state or territory across the Commonwealth. When Victoria went into a lockdown just weeks ago, they were offered by the Commonwealth a 50-50 funding split. We were prepared to go 50-50 on the business support and 50-50 on the income support. They rejected that, and they decided that the Commonwealth would pay for the income support and that the Victorian government would pay for the business support. As I understand it, in some cases, that business support promised weeks ago has still not arrived for some businesses. We have also seen in this lockdown in New South Wales, the New South Wales government and people receive exactly the same support as Victoria received for the first 2 weeks, which was the duration of the Victorian lockdown. Now that the lockdown has extended into the 4th week as is expected next week, then we are providing this additional support because it's a particularly lengthy lockdown. And as I said, we now have a template that we can roll out across the rest of the country. Finally, I wanted to touch on an issue which is a key point of difference between the Coalition and the Labor Party. The Coalition is a party of lower taxes. The Liberal Party and the National Party have proven time and time again that we seek to reduce taxes at every opportunity because people deserve to keep more of their hard-earned money. It rewards aspiration and it encourages effort. The Labor Party, on the other hand, took to the last election $387 billion of higher taxes. It was a very clear choice for the Australian people at the last election. In fact, the Labor Party had so much hubris going into that election that they told the Australian people if they didn't like Labor's tax policies to vote against it, and they took them literally. The Australian people did vote against Labor's tax policies. They rejected their higher taxes and they voted in favour of the Coalition's lower taxes. We subsequently took legislation to the Parliament after the last election and passed through a substantial package of tax relief. We passed it against the will of the opposition. Now, after that legislation was passed, the Labor Party was quick to say they supported our tax relief. But ever since then, they've been seeking to undermine that tax package, talking it down, with the shadow treasurer saying it was unfair and unreasonable to have such a tax package and provide such tax relief, which includes major structural reform with the abolition of a whole tax bracket, the 37 cents in the dollar tax bracket, and the vast bulk of taxpayers paying one single rate between if they earn between $45,000 and $200,000, they'll pay a marginal rate of no more than 30 cents in the dollar. Now, yesterday, on the front page of the Financial Review, we read that the Labor Party is going to walk back from its denigration of our tax relief and support our legislated tax cuts. But asked this morning, the Shadow Treasurer, would he support our tax cuts that are now legislated through the Parliament, that the story yesterday said they would support? He refused to do so, and he said no decision had been taken. So Labor is confused, Labor is divided on tax policy, but most importantly of all, they can't be trusted to deliver the stage 3 tax cuts that have been legislated through the Parliament. So the next election, regardless of whatever Labor tells you is their policy, the next election will be fought between a party, namely the Labor Party, that is in favour of higher taxes, and the Coalition, Liberals and Nationals, who believe and who have delivered lower taxes.